Hello and welcome everyone to Sales and Senses, the podcast where we talk about the business of things that appeal to your senses and mine. Most fragrance houses are built by people who grew up in the industry, experienced under master perfumers, trained in grass, traveled around the world for the language of perfume. My next guest today took a very different path. Roman spent 12 years as a Catholic priest. Then he spent 8 years building submarines for the United States Navy. And then, in a very unexpected turn of events, he started his own perfume brand called the House of Manchester. So today he's here to tell us all about building a brand from the outside and what he loves and hates about the industry. Welcome, Roman, to the podcast Sales and Senses.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you, Yata.
How are you, Roman?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday to you as well. Yeah. So, let's kick off. I would love to hear how you got into fragrances. How did your love affair with fragrances actually start? Because whenever you ask someone, people have stories going back to the teenagers that I was 14 years old and I first came about this perfume and that's how I started liking it. So I'd love to hear from you.
Sure. Well, my love of fragrance really began as a child as well, but I didn't really focus on it too much throughout my life. My earliest memory of fragrance was with my father. He had a cologne that he wore when I was a small child. It was called the Baron, and you couldn't buy it in the stores. It was only mail order. I think he saw an ad in a magazine somewhere, and he sent away for it. Today, of course, there's no such thing as mail order. It's all on the internet, So that's mail order, I guess, today. But nobody buys out of magazines anymore, right? So. But he that was the scent that was his signature scent, and that's the thing that I still remember the most about him. And even today, I keep a bottle of his old cologne in my house as well, and I spray it once in a while when I want to remember him. He passed away 4 years ago, so that scent keeps me close to him though, and it feels like he's in the room again with me when I smell that. So, but my mother also, she used to encouraged me wearing colognes, and when I was a child as well. I remember she bought me a Koros by Yves Saint Laurent, and that was one of my. I think that debuted in 1981. It must have been around 1984 or so where she bought it for me. So I was about 12 years old when I started wearing Koros.
And it's changed a lot since then because of all the reformulations and
Right. I think Civet was one of the primary fragrance notes in that. I don't think it was synthetic back then.
right.
So, but it is now, I suppose. But so I those are my earliest experiences with fragrance anyway. And but my life as it unfolded took a different path. I started off after high school. After I graduated, I joined the military. And I was in the Air Force, National Guard, while I was going through college. And I had intended on becoming a career officer, but I ended up getting a back injury while I was in training, and that ended my career. So I was heartbroken over that. It was a great disappointment. But while I was in my convalescence in Texas at the Air Force Base, I met a pastor down there who kind of encouraged me to look into the ministry. And when I got out of the Air Force, I began to look into that. And a few years later, I entered the seminary. I was 26 when I entered the seminary and 33 when I was ordained to the priesthood. And then I was a priest for 12 years. I left when I was 45. It was a real kind of a late stage. A lot of people, when you're 45 years old, you hope that you're not going to be making any big changes in your life at that point. But I really started over, hit the reset button. That's a long story in and of itself. We could do a whole show on that. But
Maybe you will.
I won't bog you down in those details. But after I left the ministry, I left without a safety net, I'll say. And I had to line up another job for myself. What does a 45-year-old man with a theology degree do, right? A master's of divinity. So I lined up a truck driving job for myself in Springfield, Missouri. And the day after I left the ministry, I got in my car and drove down to Springfield. It took me 2 days to get there. But the company put me through their training program, and we're going to put me to work driving their tractor trailer around the country. And I did my training in Texas, but long story short there, my family didn't like me being away from home so long, so I came back to Rhode Island And I had a friend who was a parishioner when I was a priest, who was the operations manager in Boston at Greyhound buses, motor coach line. So I went to work for Greyhound, but that didn't really go over so well because I was still not home ever. Life on the road is not much of a home life there. So, but I did have an application in with General Dynamics, and they called me looking for. They asked, "Do you still want a job?" And I said, "Sure." That would give me a home life anyway. So I went to work. They trained me as a pipe fitter, and I went to work as a pipe fitter for them. I did that for several years, and then I switched over to sheet metal because I wanted to get a broad overview of what the company did. Building a submarine isn't just one thing. It's a bunch of different systems coming together. Right. And I wanted to learn as much as I could about how the submarine was built and how it works. So I did that. And then the position in Philadelphia opened up, and I was offered the job down here. So I came down here, and the rest is history. The company was just starting off. The Philadelphia location was a brand new location. We were partnering with a vendor down here. And so it was a chance to grow with the new location. I came down here to help get it set up, and to start over from scratch, which kind of is a pattern in my life now. I had to start my life over from scratch when I left the priesthood. Then I joined a great defense contractor, came down here to start the business over from scratch down here as well. And now I'm starting over from scratch by coming into the perfume industry as well. So there's a whole lot of different restarts.
Many people say that the starting of anything new is the most exciting part. Is that because you've done it so many times? Is that true? Is that some different excitement about starting something from the scratch and actually watching it grow?
There really is, yeah. I do like watching something grow from scratch is really it's a thrilling, it's a very satisfying feeling, to know that you had something to do with that. Building a submarine too, and I did go to a christening. I had the opportunity to go to the christening of the USS Iowa, and knowing that I built some of the piping systems that were in that submarine, it just felt good to be there with all the other tradesmen who were there as well to watch it be christened and go off. And now it's the same thing with the company. When I first started working at this location that I'm at now, we had about 15 welders. Now we've got over 300. And they want to double that. They want to go up to 600 or 700. And it's just been an incredible journey. And I hope to see the same thing happen with House of Manchester as well.
So as you mentioned the House of Manchester already, at what point in these multiple changes did you actually think that, okay, I need to go back to the first fragrance I ever smelled and all that love for perfumes and start something of my own?
Well, what got me into perfumery overall? When I moved to Philadelphia, this is a good story. When I moved to Philadelphia, my salary doubled with the job that I took down here. So all of a sudden I was flush with cash, and I started to explore different hobbies, not hobbies, but interests. Because before I came down here, when I left the priesthood, the first 5 years were a real struggle. I was homeless for about 7 months. I lived in my stepsister's basement. She offered me, otherwise I would have been on the street. So I really had to work my way back up to poverty. And once I did, it felt like an accomplishment. Yeah. But when I moved to Philadelphia, all of a sudden I was overnight back in the middle class. I had some stability in my life again. And with that came a rebirth of curiosity, because when you're struggling just to survive from day to day, you don't really have a chance to explore your interests, see what you might enjoy doing. But now all of a sudden I had some financial stability, some geographical stability. I wasn't bouncing around from one illegal apartment to another. Yeah. I've been in the same place now for 4 years, and I was able to set down some roots and look into things that interested me. So I started off with clothing. I bought a whole new wardrobe. But eventually I filled my closet and I couldn't buy any more clothes. So I went on to samurai swords. I think you've probably seen my samurai swords. I posted a picture of them on LinkedIn. But so I got to 3, and I said, well, I can't really buy more than 3. I fill my house with samurai swords. So I went through several interests. And finally I started buying. I got back into buying perfumes and colognes. I think I have about 50 bottles in my room. Everything from Creed Aventus to Creed Green Irish Tweed, and I like that one. And then I like both. Creed is great. I love Creed.
Yeah.
So I have about 50 bottles of perfume in my room.
Hmm.
And then I said, you know what? I wonder how they make this. And the curiosity got the better of me, and I thought, well, maybe I can even save some money by making my own.
Right.
And big mistake. I haven't saved any money.
I can understand. It's a
I
very,
spent even more money.
and it's a very slippery slope
It
kind of
is.
addiction, because you buy one and then the next month you want another, and I've been through it myself as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you buy one and you got to get the next one. And then as soon as I started making my own, it was like a rabbit hole. I fell right down it, and I started buying more fragrance oils and more. And my dining room looks like a laboratory now. I feel like a mad scientist. I'm in there every day, every night, mixing new combinations and working on old ones, tweaking old formulas. But it's very fun. It's a new passion, and I never realized that this would be the road that I would take. But I
Right.
just kind of ended up here just by trial and error. But it's one that I'd like to see where it goes.
Yeah.
It really is a passion for me now.
So I'd assume that Creed Aventus was the one that made you think, okay, let me try and make something of my own as well. Or was it a different one?
Yeah, that because that was expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did. As a matter of fact, when I first started, I tried to make something similar to
Mhm.
Green Irish Tweed. Not a dupe. I wouldn't do that, but something inspired by it anyway.
Right.
I like the storyline behind that one too. When I realized that they made that one especially for Cary Grant, the actor, I said, "Oh, I love Cary Grant. I've seen all of his movies. I was on a Cary Grant kick about 20 years ago where I had to see every one of his movies. Back then we had VCRs, the VHS tapes. So I bought all of them, which is an obsolete technology now. I can't play them anywhere. But yeah, so Cary Grant was one of my favorite actors. So I got to get Green Irish Tweed. I have to own it. So that was one of them. And Aventus, of course, is a
Right.
classic.
So when you thought about making your own perfume, did you go through some sort of, I don't know, there I think the moment you try to do something new, there are 1,000 courses online these days. So did you go through some sort of a process or just kind of dive
Yeah.
into it?
Well, I started off just by uh, watching YouTube videos,
Mhm.
and and most of the videos that I saw were just people describing mixing essential oils with alcohol,
Hmm.
and so that's how I started off. But then I accidentally discovered a Reddit forum that there was actual perfumers, amateur perfumers talking about the craft, and I realized there's a lot more to it than just mixing essential oils with alcohol. So so that was the rabbit hole, where I fell down that, and I started doing more and more research, just reading articles online, and I also used AI because I figured I don't even know the questions that I need to ask.
Mhm.
So I just went on Chat GPT and I said, okay, Chat, whatever your name is, said, I don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know what questions I need to ask. What are the questions that I need to ask? What do I need to know? And it led me to all of the different sources that I needed, and it provided them for me. So all the articles, everything. So that was where AI came in very, very handy to help
Right.
me accelerate my learning.
That's actually an interesting point because AI is a very polarizing topic right now in
It
perfuming,
is, yeah.
because people who are obsessed with the authenticity of fragrances, who are more traditional, they say that AI is going to ruin it because the moment you ask AI to make a formula, it's
Right,
obviously going
yeah.
to give you something very common and very well understood instead of something very unique. But then at the same time, the story you are telling is a story of AI basically supporting your kind of passion for it. So what do you think?
Right, right. Yeah, I don't want AI to give me the formulas. That would take
Yeah.
all the fun out of it. So the fun is experimenting with the oils and with my own creativity. So I don't want and AI doesn't have a sense of smell. I don't know how it can tell you what smells good. So, but But yeah, if you use AI, can be abused or it can be used the right way. It's like a tool, like anything else, the way I look at it. And if you use it as a way to accelerate your own learning, that's great, such as the industry language and the history of the industry as well. Because I didn't know anything about it really. I mean, I knew a few houses, like I knew of Louis Vuitton and Yves Saint Laurent and Polo. Of course, Polo's Ralph Lauren was one of my favorites growing up as well.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I didn't really know too much about the industry. So I needed to use AI to help me accelerate my learning as far as that goes. But as far as creativity goes, everything is my own formulation, and trial and error. That's most of the fun right there.
Right. And since you mentioned experimenting with your own creativity and your own thoughts and your own formulations, I'm really curious to know how much of your background in theology and your background in shipbuilding, how much does that influence that creativity?
Yeah, well, the priesthood that gave me the philosophical background. I've always been a philosophical type of person, so I like to get into the philosophy of sense, the philosophy of anything. They've said philosophers will philosophize about anything. They'll philosophize about a ham sandwich. And it's true. So that's where I get the philosophical background from. But when I switched into shipbuilding, that's where I get my architectural and my engineering background from. I'm not an engineer. I don't want anyone to think that I'm an engineer. We do have an engineering department that I consult with on a regular basis. But I'm a tradesman by a pipe fitter, sheet metal mechanic. So I read the blueprints and I build from the blueprints. But when I came to Philadelphia, I became what they call a manufacturing representative. It was a new position that they created to help with knowledge transfer because a lot of the baby boomers are retiring now. Right. And there's not enough people coming into the workforce. So there's a big knowledge drain in the industry right now. So they created this new position to help with knowledge transfer. And in opening up a new place in Philadelphia, we were working with a whole new labor force that knew nothing about electric boat general dynamics. Or building submarines. So that's what I came down here for, was to help do the knowledge transfer. And then I went back into supervision. But yeah, so that's where I get the whole structural background from. And now I look at fragrance a lot the same way that I do building a submarine. Yeah. Yeah, everything fits together a certain way. There's tolerances. One of the things I like to talk about is stacked tolerances. It's in a complex system, when you've got multiple things coming together, each part can be out of sync just a little bit, and it won't throw off the whole structure. But when you begin to stack those tolerances up, say you've got one error you can recover from, but 100 errors, small errors, individually they're not bad, but when you add them all together, now it throws the whole structure out of alignment, and that can be quite a problem.
Do you see that translating into the way you design a fragrance as well?
Yeah, because if you look at a formula, if you look at the fragrance notes on a profile for perfume, it might say it might have nine fragrance notes in its profile, but without knowing the exact formula, you can combine those notes in any combination, but only one of those combinations is going to unlock the secret to the formula. And that's why I don't have any problem publishing my fragrance notes or even the ingredients, the full ingredient, because I use something, I call it the structural core. I think a lot of people might even call it the radiant core, but I use ISO-E Super, Hedione, and ambroxan in a lot of my formulas, and all of them now, actually. Not so much the ambroxan, but that goes in certain ones. But that's for projection and lift. And I had no problem listing all of the ingredients because without the exact formulation, it's going to be hard to replicate. Sure. And it's like a combination lock, with 9 different numbers. Right. It's you can't. Yeah, you have to hit it just right to open the lock.
And for you, when you started the idea of House of Manchester, in terms of a brand, in terms of an identity, what did you envision it being? Because I imagine, like, for example, we have brands such as Le Labo, which is completely about clean. It is almost supposed to look like something right out of a lab, right? Every
Uh,
brand has a theme, every brand has an identity. What did you think House of Manchester has to stand for?
well, this is interesting because I've got so many ideas, but the basic idea is that I want to build the house based on what I call domains. And the idea is that, well, in luxury, there's a problem. The problem is scale. When you scale a company, it loses its identity. It dilutes the identity of the company and the product itself. So I say, how can we scale without losing identity? And so I created these domains, and each domain is a separate world in and of itself. It's like a different. Think of the House of Manchester as a universe,
Oh,
right? The universe is always expanding, right?
right.
And each domain is like a planet in that universe. And each planet has its own ecosystem, everything, its own environment, its own civilizations that can be explored. And so you can develop each domain according to its own internal logic. And in this regard, I can expand the universe of House of Manchester without diluting any of the core identities.
Right.
And several of the fragrances that I've come up with are kind of they cross domains. The original five that I came up with, they represent different aspects of human. The first five that I came up with were the Atlantic domain, because I grew up on the Atlantic. And then there was the pastoral domain, which is kind of reminiscent of, or it invokes a the cultivated natural world, I call it, like orchards and vineyards and national parks and things of that nature. And then you got the liturgical domain, which doesn't just limit. It's not just limited to religion, a religious liturgy. It's liturgy in the broader sense of the work of the people. It's anything that involves ritual and ceremony. So a soccer game, that's liturgical. There's traditions in the soccer game, right? You drop the ball at the beginning. Courthouses have liturgy. The secular liturgy. So anything that involves ceremony and ritual belongs in the liturgical domain. So that can be sporting events, religious events, public events, anything. The Oscars, the Academy Awards are very liturgical. So anything that is inspired by one of those types of events can fit into my liturgical domain. But then there's a pilgrimage domain and the mythic. The mythic domain is one of my favorites.
Right.
That really
I
allows
think
me to
you
do
saw
some.
one with inspired by a dragon.
Yes, the
From
Dragon's Veil. Yeah, that was what I said. Okay, the mythic domain. I can really explore in there.
Yeah, because that's endless. Like you can go as deep and as imaginative into it as possible.
Right, right. So these domains, though, yeah, that's the key architecture of the house, and so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to develop a structure, an architecture that we can carry the luxury industry, even not just perfumery, but the whole luxury industry could benefit from knowing.
While this creative side was always flowing, of course, you had so many ideas with all these different domains and what you wanted to create. You started off with a set of five. From a more logistical and more practical aspect, did you face any challenges entering the industry and not just designing the products, but actually delivering the products, actually bringing them to life? Did you feel that, okay, this is something about this industry which is like a bottleneck, which shouldn't be as tough as it is?
Oh, well, I'm still experiencing the challenges. I'm still small. I'm doing bespoke work right now, and selling to local friends, family, people from work, and a lot of bespoke work. But developing private formulas for people. Because that's what my strategy was, to go on LinkedIn and to kind of become more familiar with the people, key figures, draw some attention to myself as well, and be able to get this off the ground. Because really, I've been financing this entirely myself out of my own funds to this point. And I think that if I could properly draw I'm not looking for venture capital or anything like that. I need to have, I'm trying to attract the right kind of capital, patient money, someone who understands what this is all about, building slowly and deliberately and patiently. So I have had some interest from certain places that really didn't fit. So I had to. I'm very selective though in who I choose to
Right.
partner with. So, and I'm in no rush. I'm in no rush because I do have a great career right now building submarines, and so I mean, if I was jobless, that would be another thing. I'd be in a rush, but I'm very patient.
Yeah.
So like, and hopefully the slow build will be a solid build.
Right.
Yeah. If I was building very fast and rapid, it would be could be a ramshack, a very unsturdy building. But because I'm building slowly and deliberately, I think it's going to have a chance to survive long term.
Right. And I imagine the idea of building slow also allows you to create and explore all these domains that you're talking about, because once you get into venture capital money or big money, the expectation is that you follow the trends, and the trends right now in the market is just, it's very similar. It's all the
Right.
fragrances, the ideology is very similar of having one fragrance that works and then coming out with an intense version of it and then coming out with
Right. Right.
it. So it's going to follow the same formula if that really
Yeah.
happens.
It's almost like they lack imagination. They come up with one perfume, and instead of coming out with another one, they come out with 5 different variations of that one.
Yeah.
And like, okay, how many of these can you come out with? Just think of something new. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I can see maybe having 2 or 3 versions of the same one, like maybe
Yeah.
an eau de toilette, an EDT, an EDP, and maybe an extrait. But other than that, I don't know. It's the creation, the storytelling.
Interesting. And
Yeah.
you've been exploring, you talked about directly, ordering essential oils and started working with it. What was that process like? How did you explore exactly where to source from, what to buy, what not to buy? Because there's a whole lot of different options available, from cheap and not so amazing to the most,
Right.
God's elixir kind of oils that are available. So how did that process go by?
That was a trial and error. Some of the oils I bought weren't that great. Some of them are. Um, I Now I'm buying sourcing most of my materials from companies in India and England.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's one company in England that actually they stopped. They're not, because of the embargo, not the embargo, the tariffs. They've stopped shipping to the United States. But I did find another one in England that will ship to the U.S. So I'm using them right now. And the company I was using in India, again, they stopped shipping to the U.S. for the same reason, the tariffs. So that's a challenge right now. Yeah, finding reliable sourcing is definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
But I found that looking internationally, although the Perfumer's Apprentice is a good source too for smaller businessmen like myself, smaller perfumers. So there are a few that provide quality ingredients. Smaller people like me.
Interesting, interesting. And sourcing from India and England, is it? I mean, very two different markets, but what merits did you particularly see in those particular markets? So was India more of a economical choice that you were able to buy something for because of the value for money, or was it the
Right.
authenticity of ingredients or something like that?
The company in India, it was more economical, as you say, and some of the quality. I researched the quality on it too, and I thought, well, if it's cheaper, it's probably not as good. But they did have some. It was a lot more what they say bang for your buck. There was some good sandalwood, benzoin, some of those labdanum, some of those ingredients have some real high quality coming out of India, and and in Singapore as well. But then they stopped shipping to the U.S. So great. So I got to spend more to get them from England. Now, but England has some good sourcing as well. But I'm always open to looking for other sources as well. I want to use the best ingredients in my perfumes. That's one of the I want to hold myself to that standard too. So that's another reason I'd like to properly capitalize the business side of it, because I don't want to be, and that it will be a concern. I know that sometimes investors, they'll say, oh, well, we need to follow the cheaper route, right? But so that's something I'll probably have to fight for at some point. Go with the premium ingredients.
Yeah. You mentioned sandalwood, labdanum, and benzoin. So, I mean, apart from them, or maybe including them, which is the note, or which is the ingredient that you loved working with the most?
Well, I like sandalwood. There's different types of sandalwood too. Australian sandalwood, Indian sandalwood. But you might find this funny, but when I first bought the benzoin and the labdanum, and even guaiac wood, cashmere, I didn't know it. I thought I was going to be getting the diluted form. I got the resin, and I opened up the bottle and I tried to pour it. I was like, where is it? Where is it? It was solidified inside the bottle. I'm like, son of a gun. What do I have to, okay, how do I go on Chat GPT? Chat, how do I dilute benzoin? And I get the instructions and okay, now here I'm doing diluting benzoin.
Yeah.
So down to 10%. I left some of it at 20% though, because that's what I tend to dilute my raw materials to a higher percentage because I can always dilute it more later.
Yeah.
But if I want to go with a stronger blend, then I can do that too. But I like working with raw materials because I can have more control over it that way.
Right. It's very interesting that you mentioned that even while making the formula, you were actively talking to ChatGPT and asking it how to.
Yeah, right. I have the phone. I was on my phone. Like I got the thing. I'm like, man, how do I do this? Because I don't have any. I don't have a perfumer, any formal training, so I have to
Right.
figure this out on my own somehow.
Yeah. But is that something you're looking into, like getting formal training
I
or?
would love that. I would love that. But yeah, it's difficult with my schedule at work right now. But at some point, I would love to be able to study under a master perfumer. Yeah, I would definitely not turn that opportunity down.
But I imagine so far the master perfumer ChatGPT is doing a good job.
Yeah, I like to ask it questions. You have to know which questions to ask it. I find that using AI, um, it reflects the intelligence of the user.
Right.
So if you don't know what questions to ask it, it doesn't know what answers to give you, and so I have to take that into account as well. But it does reflect your own curiosity too. I mean, some people are just looking for easy shortcuts, and that type of thing will be very uninspired. But if you're someone who's curious and wants to know real answers, it can be a real tool, and it can help you learn. So that's how I've used it as well.
Yeah. I've actually I recently, I don't know if you read one of my posts on this, but I recently visited this place which is called AI assisted perfume, like I don't remember the exact name, but it's AI assisted perfumery. Basically, you go into the store, you fill out this form which is like a psychometric form where you fill out what your tastes and preferences are, what kind of a person you are, and then AI does its magic and then suggests three formulas for you. You can immediately in the store produce those three formulas, 5 ml bottles of each, and then
Uh,
smell and decide if AI has done a good job, or do you want to maybe edit the formula a bit and come up with new fragrances. So I know you already mentioned that you wouldn't want an AI created formula, but to what extent do you personally think, since you are also actively using AI to train
yep.
yourself and to understand certain things, to what extent do you think AI can actually be useful in the creative process?
I think that what you described just now, it's interesting because for someone who has no experience, that could be, and doesn't have the time to go into it or the desire to go into it like I did, that could be a very interesting route to go. But for me, like I said, it's not really for me though, because I like to experiment. And that's, like I say, that's the fun. But if someone's just trying to put together some fragrance notes, then, as a customer, they can, maybe it's like working I mean, like people work with me, like when someone comes to me and they want me to make them a perfume, what I'll do is I'll sit down with them, or I'll do it over the internet or the phone. But I'll see what are they looking for. I'll come up with some fragrance notes, suggest something to them. I'll even go over a name with them. I'll suggest various names or naming options, and so I let them choose the name of the perfume as well, and what it's going to mean to them. So, but that's a very personal way to go about it. I suppose in this way, AI is kind of replacing me, replacing the role of the curator or the human element to it, and that's kind of, I don't know how I feel about that. I think I like that too much,
Yeah.
uh, but. Yeah, but there is something to be said for the bespoke type of. I don't know, is that what it is? AI is. It's like bespoke AI almost, right? I don't. Yeah, I don't. Taking the human element out of it just seems
Right,
wrong. Yeah.
right, right. I think and even from the consumer's perspective, it's not very well received because I remember the first the first fragrance I remember commercially talking a lot about AI or being AI assisted was from Paco Rabanne, which was Phantom.
Uh-huh.
And even though they did not really use AI the way we use AI right now, they
Hmm.
released the perfume with a couple of perfumers who had worked on it and also saying that it's AI assisted. So AI kind of did the job of collecting data and telling the
Uh,
perfumers what they should use. Even before the fragrance launched, it was completely review bombed on Fragrantica. So everyone's just giving it a 1 star because they don't want the industry to go into that direction. So it's
right, right.
consumer's perspective, I imagine, very scary. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the the idea that AI could become, I don't know, it has I don't know if you heard what Elon Musk said about AI, but um he's kind of uh skeptical about it as well. You know, he just could destroy the world. But yeah, so I don't like the idea of humans handing over their agency to a computer, basically to AI, making it's almost like astrology. You know, people who are hooked on it, they let the fortune tellers control their actions and everything. If you can become paralyzed to AI, just letting AI make all your decisions for you, letting AI basically determine the path of your life. People who are afraid to make a decision on their own will just ask AI, "What should I do?" And it'll tell them and they'll do it. It's like a high tech astrologer, you
Yeah.
know. And I don't like that part of it at all.
That's actually one of the best analogies I've heard about AI, that it's like an astrologer. And I've firsthand seen people do that when the moment they get a task, it's all just type it all into ChatGPT and let it tell you what it has to do. But then I imagine the problem with that is if 10 people are doing the same thing, then everyone comes up with the exact same,
Right, right. The same idea, you know.
which is ChatGPT.
And I've noticed on LinkedIn and on social media in general that there are certain catchphrases or words that
Yeah,
give it away that AI came up with that answer,
yeah.
you know. And the more
The moment I read someone writing X did not just do Y, it did Z. I imagine that's a typical chat GPT line for me.
right, like that resonates. That's an AI. And the thing is, once in a while, I mean, that's a good word, but you know, when you see it said so many times over and over again, it's like, wait a minute, that's got to be something that AI is saying because you see the same phrases over and over again,
Right.
and yeah,
Yeah.
but
It's it's
it's kind of funny.
yeah, it's a tough thing. It could turn out really well, it could turn out disastrous, but
Yeah,
I guess only time will tell.
yeah. You know, it's funny when I send emails on Google now. I have Gmail, and when I'm writing a response to somebody, the Google will underline certain sentences or whatever, and then it'll suggest. I click on it. Why is that? That's proper sentence structure. You know, I didn't misspell anything there, so I'll click on the thing, and it suggests another way to say it.
Mhm.
And sometimes I'll go like, "Nah, I like my way better," or I'll be like, "You know, it does sound kind of better," so I'll click on it and use that. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it's like having an editor, you
Yeah,
know, for you while you're typing.
yeah.
But you know, if you're going to be an author, you know, there's another way to look at it. Authors, professional authors anyway, they have publishers, they have editors working for them. They pay big money for those people. So AI, in one regard, it makes the editorial process more available to people who don't have the same resources as, say, a Stephen King or a major author like that. But still, yeah, I think as long as we maintain our own creativity and our own agency and don't let AI take over our lives like that, because I can see that definitely happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I imagine that in the industry you're heading in, it's very disastrous to imagine everyone just constantly using AI to
Right.
as you said, giving away their agency to AI.
Right. Yeah. That's a scary thing because I can almost predict that is what's going to happen.
Mhm.
Because it seems like the worst case scenario. I hope I'm not being pessimistic here, but it seems like the worst case scenario is always something that comes true eventually. But
No, because I think a lot of brands have already been under fire for using AI imagery, especially
mhm.
luxury brands. I think Gucci was one of them. If I'm not, I shouldn't be naming brands if I'm not sure. But
Yeah,
a lot of the luxury brands have been under a lot of criticism for using AI generated images, even having AI generated texts as captions and stuff, which is, I
Yeah.
imagine, so easy to get wrong, because if it's just one person responsible for one social media post and they just decide to use AI,
Right,
then
right.
it's very easy for people to catch that.
Yeah, and I think some people they might some of the articles or posts that you read seem uninspired. I think sometimes I wonder if the author just said, "All right, AI, give me an article about this," and with no contributions to it. So I try to work in myself into my posts a lot of the time. I'll work in some personal perspective and personal stories, something that makes it personal. So it's some people will realize, okay, this the AI didn't come up with this,
Yeah.
because it's so ubiquitous now that it's hard to decide, it's hard to determine, where was AI used and what's authentic.
Yeah.
So, so I think that by including personal stories from your own life, that really humanizes it,
True.
and yeah,
Interesting.
a personal philosophy too. You put in your own personal thoughts too, because AI doesn't have a depth really. It's mostly surface level stuff. If you're like a surface level thinker, AI is going to stay at the surface for you. But if you have depth, then even if you do use AI, I think that it will reflect your depth. But yeah, you have to definitely you only get out of it what you put into it. I guess that's an old saying, but you need to be responsible for your own creative process. You can't farm that out to AI.
Coming back to House of Manchester, you've already been working at General Dynamics. From a
Yep.
business perspective, did you come across any scenario while building the brand, building House of Manchester, where you thought this is quite similar to, something that I came across at General Dynamics, and any learnings from your previous job that you were able to, implement in the new brand?
Oh, well, most of my experience from General Dynamics that I carry over is the philosophy or the principles from the actual building process. The engineering and the structural lessons. The business side of it, mostly, we have so many different departments within the company, and I'm in supervision now. But so mostly I deal with time constraints and scheduling and cost and quality. So quality, that's one of the major things, of course, that I look for. Uh, Again, going back to the whole tolerances issue, making sure that things are within spec and coming up with. Even then, there's a lot of new stuff though in the fragrance industry that I'm new to, and as far as the business aspect of it goes. But actually, going back to the priesthood, that's where I had actually more business experience from that than I did from General Dynamics, because as a pastor of a church, I was the treasurer basically, and I was responsible for the business side of the operation there. So not just the spiritual, but the business side of it as well. So that's where I got a lot of my experience reading P&Ls and spreadsheets and things of that nature, and talking with accountants and finance counsels and that kind of thing.
That's the first time I've heard about the P&Ls from a religious.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There is definitely a business aspect to it. It's not one that a lot of people think of, but yeah.
The reason why I say it's surprising is also the reason why I did not ask about the business aspect of your life as a pastor.
Yeah. Right. Right. You don't expect that.
Interesting.
Yeah. 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 With book, I had to actually hire people. At General Dynamics, I don't. I'm not responsible for the hiring and the firing. That's all done by HR. But when I was a pastor, I was responsible for the hiring and the firing. But we even had an HR department too at the diocese, and I had to go through the diocese. If I wanted to, or if I had to let someone go, I had to go through the procedure through HR, even with the diocese. But hiring was all on me, though, as far as bringing people on board. So I had so that really that was a broad spectrum baptism in the business world, if you want to call it that.
And since you talk about like managing the timesheets of your team and supervision, is there some aspect of your brand now that you like? I imagine right now you're just working by yourself,
Yeah.
but do you imagine any aspect where you'd require building a team or require additional effort for building House of Manchester?
Yeah, that's why I'm looking for the right partner. That someone who could ideally take over the business side of it for me, and I could focus on the creative side and being the face of the house. And and also, I mean, I would want to have some input on the business side of it. But as far as things that really kind of intimidate me, though, are government compliance, regulatory compliance.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that. I mean, I know some about the IFRA and things like that. That's all the nitty gritty that I really would rather hand off to somebody else. Tax law, I don't want to deal with that. And when I was even a priest, I had an accountant. I had a CPA working for me,
Yeah.
and I just handed all that stuff off to him in the finance council. And then I would have him explain it to me once a month, the 6 month, once quarterly. They'd explain it to me, and I would have to approve it and sign off on it. But yeah, definitely. Part of being a leader, part of being a founder too, I think, isn't doing it all yourself. It's knowing who to surround yourself with, who can do it, and entrusting their expertise. So, and also having a broad spectrum kind of knowledge about what's going on, being a jack of all trades, master of none. That's kind of what I see myself as at General Dynamics, because I've been trained in so many different fields there now that I know a lot about a lot of things, but not everything about any one thing.
So the next section I have is called Love It or Hate It. So you've been a consumer of fragrances. You already mentioned you have built a collection of more than 50 fragrances. So from a consumer plus a business owner standpoint now, I'd love to hear your perspective on whether you love it or hate it for these certain fragrance industry conventions from both the industry as well as the consumer side. So I'll just give you a brief description of some common things in the industry, and you can just say whether you love it or you hate it, and why, if you want to add that. So the first one I have is called scent wardrobing. Basically, people owning 10s, 20s, 30s of fragrances to match with different moods and outfits and occasions, daytime, nighttime. What is your, because this is one of those very few industries where people actually do that.
I love that. I love that idea, because why limit yourself to just one? I mean, you can have a signature scent, like my dad did, but why limit yourself when you don't have to, right?
Right.
You can have a morning scent, an evening scent,
Yeah,
going out scent. Why not?
true.
I like that idea.
The next one is the gourmand direction. So in the past 3 years, we have seen a lot of sweet perfumes come up. Everything nowadays smells like a dessert. So
Right.
vanilla, pistachio, vanilla, chocolate, everything has to do something with something edible. What is your opinion on that?
I started off skeptical about that as well, but it's grown on me somewhat, and I've dabbled in it a little bit now myself too. And actually, one of the fragrances I made for somebody, two of them now actually, have been gourmands. So yeah, my friend, one of my friends that lives in New Jersey, just over the river there, she said that she liked gourmands. So I said, okay, I'll come up with something for you. And it was a blueberry type of scent for her, and another one was more vanilla forward. So
Right.
I made one with that in mind. Now, vanilla is very versatile. You can use it in a number of different things that aren't gourmand. But this one was definitely more of a gourmand. So, but yeah, in coffee, I've started to dabble in the coffee one now too. I was a little skeptical about that, but
Coffee is actually a tough one because I feel I've been trying to find a coffee fragrance for so long, and then I've never really been able to find the perfect coffee fragrance. There are
right. A lot
there are
of them seem they're very sweet, aren't they?
Yeah, they're either very sweet, they're too realistic, or like I know Acro Awake is a very realistic coffee scent, but then sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes you don't want the exact smell of the
Yeah.
coffee. You want some more creativity with it. It's
Something that smells more like black coffee rather than a latte,
yeah.
You gotta find a way to dull the scent a little bit. But
Interesting.
yeah.
The next one I have is genderless fragrances. So in the past, again, couple of years, we've seen more and more brands going more towards the unisex
Mhm.
positioning than a male or female positioning.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
That is an interesting question, because I think that genderless is really more a storytelling type of association game, because what really is a feminine scent and a masculine scent and a unisex scent, unless we tell people what it represents.
Hmm.
And historically, florals, bright florals are feminine, woody scents and green scents are masculine. But what's to say we couldn't flip that script at some point just by constant repetition of that message culturally? We could. And so I think it's mostly a I don't want to say marketing scheme, but unisex. What is unisex? It's marketing. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, we could take that same exact scent profile we're told is unisex and just hammer it into people's heads that this is masculine, and all of a sudden it becomes masculine.
Hmm.
So, so yeah, I think that's mostly just a marketing ploy. It's and it reflects modern values too. It's because we live in a more unisex, gender fluid society today, and we're trying to reach those people rather than pigeonhole them into a masculine or feminine scent profile. So I think that's where that comes from. That's my under the hood analysis of that.
The next one I have is fragrance as wellness. So a lot of brands are now coming up with fragrances marketed towards wellness objectives. So maybe a lavender perfume that helps you sleep better, maybe a mint-based perfume that helps you perform better in the gym, something like that. What do you think? Is that something that's going to last, or do you think it's just a short-term trend?
Uh, that I think you're driving at like the neuroscience aspect of
Right.
like certain fragrances can trigger certain. I think certain fragrances can trigger certain reactions, but as far as triggering certain emotions, that's totally different. A certain fragrance might stimulate the adrenaline glands, we'll say, or I don't know if that. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just hypothetically saying that because I don't know the connection there. But I know certain fragrances can stimulate the gag reflex, and or certain fragrances are very pleasant.
Yeah.
But in that way, I think like the neuroscience aspect has some validity there. But as far as developing the emotional connection to fragrances, that is really out of the neuroscience realm there. That's more with what we associate the scent with. And that's very individual. That's going to be different for every person, really.
Right.
Now, there are some fragrances that have a cultural meaning too, like oud in the Middle East. So if you're from the Middle East, you're going to have a very different reaction to oud than someone from North America because the association is different. That's not a neuroscience thing. That's a cultural thing, which is behavioral science, I think, more in that vein. So, but yeah, so I think there is a place for that. What you were mentioning, as we learn more about the connection between fragrance and its physiological triggers, there's a place for that. But I don't think we want to lose the other side of it as well,
Right.
where we derive meaning from.
Right. And the last one now is the big elephant in every room where fragrance is being discussed. What is your opinion on the dupe ecosystem? So the, all the clones, all the dupes, actually doing way better than the originals at this point.
I think that's an educational problem too, because I don't think it's economic so much as it is anything else. I look at dupes and I compare them to counterfeit currency, counterfeit money. It's sure you can come up with a really good counterfeit, but it's not the same, and it doesn't, and it lacks the. It's not authentic. It lacks the full faith and backing of the government that issued the money. Nobody wants counterfeit money. Now, even if it looks exactly the same as the real thing, nobody wants it. They want the real thing. So if you have a person who really wants the real thing, they're not going to buy a dupe. And we have to kind of train them to see the dupe. That's exactly what it is. It's counterfeit perfume and not the real thing. It lacks the authority of the author. It lacks the backing of it. It's just not the same.
Right.
And oftentimes they're of a lesser quality as well. They're made with cheaper oils, cheaper materials.
Right.
So yeah, I hate dupes.
Summary. In summary, I hate dupes.
Right, right.
Yeah. The last section before we close is just about recommendations. So I know you've already mentioned a couple of fragrances. You mentioned YSL Kuros a couple of times, but I'd love to hear your all-time favorites, recommendations, as many as you'd like to give for the audience.
All right. Let's see. My all-time favorites, definitely the Baron, my father's cologne. And I like Polo. I like Creed. I like Creed because of the association. The power, authority aspect of it, of the connection to the royal family, and even making perfume for the stars. But I like Ralph Lauren Polo because he was American. He grew up not far from where I did. He was from New York. I was from Rhode Island, only maybe 2.5, 3 hours away from me. And I like his story that he sold neckties in I think Brooklyn or the Bronx, and then he created worlds. He created a world that people wanted to be a part of,
Right.
even before he sold anything, and he didn't even go into perfume early on. I mean, that was something later he developed. But I like the whole self-made man story. It's a very uniquely American type of thing, the self-made man. And so that's kind of like how I see myself, even in that tradition. So I can identify with him. And as far as the world maker goes too,
Right.
because I see myself kind of like Tolkien though in that regard. No, I don't. He's my inspiration. J.R.R. Tolkien. He
Right.
created Middle Earth before he ever populated it.
Right.
He built the Earth, like how God created the Earth in 6 days. The story goes.
So
He
we're going to get
built the world. Yeah, he
we're
built the
going to get
world before he put people in it. Before he populated it, he totally created. And that's what builders do. They build houses too. You don't move a family into a house before it's finished being built, right? So
Right.
you build it, you prepare it, you outfit it with everything it needs. Now it's ready to be lived in. And
Right.
so that's what I'm doing with the House of Manchester, completely building it, constructing the worlds as the domains, and then I populate it afterwards.
Right. So I imagine we're going to get a Lord of the Rings inspired perfume.
You might, you
in
never
the,
know.
in the
You
sales
never
and But that's all I had for today. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing these wonderful stories, recommendations, and insights with us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank
It's been a pleasure to be with you.
Same.
I
Thank
hope
you.
to do it again.
Yeah, of course, 100%.